Good.
Hi, it's Marnie Pehrson and Sue Painter, and we're back with our online business reality show, Marnie and Sue's Peep Show, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at our businesses. And today we're going to be talking about a question that was submitted by one of our viewers. And Sue, you want to encapsulate that question for us here?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's good to have you here today. Marnie and I have miscounted. We thought this was our 12th episode, but actually it's our 13th episode. So we will renumber next week's as number 14 and get back on the straight and narrow. We're having so much fun, I guess we forgot totally that we had done 12 of them already. But one of our viewers sent in a question that we thought would be useful for a lot of you. And his question was, how can I connect with an audience? He said that he had spent a lot of time in a job where 99% of the time he worked alone, and now he has started his own business where he has to do sales and he has to get out and connect with people. So he asked specifically about how to connect with an audience. But I wonder also if what he meant was how to connect with people in general and how to get out and network a little bit. So we're going to talk about both of those things today. And then I guess maybe Marnie might catch us up on how her done for you, or not done for you, done with you product thing is going. And then I was going to talk a little bit, if we have time, about ground of being. I'm off on a tangent about how we need to have a smooth ground of being if we're going to be business owners. So, and I wrote something on my Facebook page today, on my business page over at Facebook/Confident Marketer, if you want to go take a look at that. So the question about how to connect, I guess, Marnie, do you want to, should we chat a little bit about first specifically with an audience, because that's what was in his question, and then we can talk about connecting in general with people, not like when you're up speaking in front of an audience, but just connecting in your community maybe?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, that's one of the things I teach people in my program, is how to connect with the audience, how to engage them. And there's sort of like a little bit of a protocol that I break it down into kind of a templated format. And questions, if you ask people questions that they're going to answer yes to, that kind of puts them in a, oh yeah, do you want to learn about this? Have you ever experienced that? Get them to kind of answer these questions in their mind. That will connect with them. Also, gratitude connects with people. If you thank them for being there, or if you thank the people who, facilitated the event or whatever, there's a connecting thing when someone shows some gratitude. Another connector is stories. If you share your story and you're willing to get a little bit vulnerable with it, where you become human and real, there's a really strong bond with stories that can be created if you're willing to do that. Or humor. If you've got some way to just make them laugh a little bit, that brings down the barrier a little bit where they're going to connect with you. So there's a few things when talking that I would start off with.
Yeah, I agree. I almost always, when I'm in front of an audience, connect with them by asking questions, or I will, if I'm going to be the featured speaker that day, I'll show up a little bit earlier and actually walk around the tables if it's a luncheon, or walk around in the crowd and introduce myself as the speaker and say, I'm going to be talking about online marketing today. Do you have a specific question you'd like me to answer? And try to get the feel from the audience as to what it is they're there to listen to specifically. And I agree with you, thanking people for coming and starting out your speech with a story. Stories always sell. And there's that old song in marketing about facts tell but stories sell, and that's really true. People like to see you as human, and like to hear stories about maybe the products that you're selling, if you're selling a product, or what happened if someone used your service if you're selling a service. So stories are also good. Another thing that I learned from Michael Port back years ago is, when you go to an event and you're talking with people, then always have something to invite people to. And we joke about that a lot in the Book Yourself Solid community, because I'm one of Michael's Book Yourself Solid coaches, and he we call it EFSIPTO for short, but it's always have something to invite people to, which means if you're talking about what it is that your product or service is, you can say, no, I'm having a free webinar. I'd like to invite you to listen in, or I'm having a free event down at the library, and I'd like to invite you to attend, or whatever the thing is. Every week have something, some way. I'm having a coffee on Thursday morning at the local Starbucks just for people who are interested to hear more about what I do, and also I want to hear about what you do. I'd love for you to join us. We're going to meet at 8 o'clock for coffee, whatever the deal is. So really it is about being real and extending yourself as a person and listening really well to what it is that people are telling you they're interested in hearing from you. So, and it's easy when you do that, and as Marnie said, when you're vulnerable, then it's easy to connect with an audience. I remember once years ago when I was making a speech in front of this big group of executive women in New York, and I was all dressed up and everything, but I had fallen the day before and I had sprained my ankle, and there was just absolute, it was back in the days when I could still wear high heels. I can't do that anymore, but I couldn't wear high heels that day. I had this brand new shiny pair of high heels, and I couldn't do it. I had to wear these kind of ugly flats, and I could barely stand on that ankle even with flats. So I got there, and I was just convinced that they weren't even going to listen to me because of, my feet weren't dressed up enough. So I decided to start with that story. We were talking about leadership and how we show up for people. So I started with the story of worrying about image instead of about your effect on people and your essence of people. I told the story about the ugly shoes I had on and, stuck my foot up in there, and all those women got it. They laughed, and we had a great speech, and I had a really good conversion from that, from that speech when I did my upsell to the audience. So things like that will help you connect.
I love that. That's a good. So you brought in a little bit of humor. You connected with them over a story all in one. So that's great. Yeah.
And I think, Marnie, about as far as connecting out in the community, not when you're in front of an audience, but just how to in your community. I know you've been doing a little bit more of that locally, so you might have some tips. But, you can join groups. You can show up in committee meetings. One of the best things, I think, is to figure out how you want to give back to your community. Get involved in some type of a charity or some type of a service organization and really be active in that organization and let people know you. And then naturally they'll end up thinking about you and knowing what you do in your business. You will eventually end up getting clients and business from that. So those are some of the ways you can connect if you're looking to connect in a local, real community. And
yeah.
I have some other tips for that as well.
Yeah, you just never know locally where something will go. I was asked by my son's marketing teacher to come and talk to the youth about being a writer and what it would, take to be a writer. So I went over there with a PowerPoint presentation, and they bribed them with pizza to come in. If they would come in, they'd get a token for some free pizza on the way out. And but I hit it off with the teacher over there, and so when I got done, she said, anything I can do to help you? And it's like, what can a school teacher do to help me? And she said, well, they're doing this child literacy program, and she's involved with Blue Cross and Volkswagen and all these bigger corporations, and she's like, give me a brochure and I'll get it to the people that I know are in all these corporations, if you've got some training thing.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me that a school teacher would have that connection, and then she invited me to be a part of a kind of a marketing board where the other people who were on it would be potential clients for me, So just being willing to get out and do something that you might not be able to see immediately how that's going to pay off,
Yeah.
to support your community could open some doors for you. And as far as connecting, I think kindness connects. Like I was sitting at my son was inducted in the National Junior Honor Society yesterday, and you sit on the little junior high bleachers, and I've got these long legs, and so I sat in. There were 2 empty seats next to me, but I sat on the end because there was nobody in front of me, and I wouldn't have to jam into somebody's back with my knees, right? So these people come in, this family, and they're trying to find somewhere they can all fit and sit, And, well, maybe a few of us can go here and some of that. I said, well, you can sit here. And I got up and I moved or whatever. Anyway, I kind of struck up a conversation with the guy behind me. I mean, it didn't go into business or anything, but the ice was broken enough that I could have turned around and had some kind of conversation with that man if I'd wanted to, further than just joking about knees in your back or whatever. But I just think kindness, doing something simple like that, brings down walls and barriers between people.
I agree. Another friend of mine who has a very successful business as a business coach, she says, I make it my business to tell 3 people every day about who I am and what I do. And, if she's in line at Starbucks every morning, if she's dropping her kids off at school during the day, she always tries to find 3 people and mention to introduce herself and mention to 3 people the work that she does. And sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, and sometimes it does. Sometimes she's actually ended up meeting people and getting clients that way. So, just making sure that you always are putting yourself out there. And, there's another, I know somebody who used to sell Mary Kay, and she said within Mary Kay they taught you that if you were anybody within 3 feet of you was a potential client. So, if you're standing in line, let's say at the movie or at the bank or whatever, and you can strike up a conversation. So I hope those kinds of things are helpful to the guy who asked the question. Hope that's helpful for you. And let's see, Marnie, you want to catch us up on what's going on with you this week, business-wise, a little bit?
Yeah, I just finished up the 3-week training on how to create your products and sell them and market them. I had it split out. That went really well, and I'm going to be doing another one in November in the more, I call it the high-octane version, where you do it in a week.
Yeah.
And I'm actually seeing, I think that the people who did it in a week actually got better results than the people who spread it out over 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I think they blocked that week off and focused on it, and where the others thought, well, I got a little more time, and I think we expand our projects to fit the time that's allowed,
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah.
I was listening to Mike Koenig's yesterday, and he was talking about, people were saying, well, how long should you really budget to do a book, to do a short ebook, like a Kindle book? And they were saying a year, 6 months, and he was like, heck no, 30 days is the most. I mean, you don't need longer than that. Like, just sit down and just get it done. Commit yourself to it on a daily schedule and just get it done. And he tells a story about how he wrote his first book by talking into his iPhone an hour a day while he was living over at Duke University, having daily treatment for colon cancer, daily radiation. And he was very sick. He was on the edge of death, and he wanted to get this book done in case he did die. And he said, I had about an hour of energy a day, and I would take that hour and I would just talk into my iPhone, and then I would send that off to be transcribed. And at the end of 2 weeks, he had more than enough material for a book. He could edit it into a book and put a cover on it and stick it up on Amazon, and it became a bestseller. So it is that thing about really committing to what we want to have happen and just focusing on that and getting that done, managing through that project. So, and I think that's something that we fall in and out of. We get better at it for a while, and then we kind of get off on other tangents and let life intervene, and we get kind of unfocused, and it's harder to get things done. And then we kind of go back around again. I'll tell you another thing I'm trying, and I'll let people know next week how it worked. Paul Evans has been talking to, you have so much teaching material, and you'll never probably get it all out of your hard drive and out of your head. So much. So why don't you start doing Friday flash sales? And this is a good way, by the way, if you have a list that is a cold list and you haven't made an offer to that list for a while, so you're really wondering if it's a viable list, if it's a list of buyers, or if it's just a list of tire kickers, people who will take everything free that you give them, but they will never, ever spend money with you, then put together something and do like a Friday flash sale and take one of your products and lower the cost of it down to where it's just a no-brainer, like a $7. Mine's going to be a $7 flash sale. So I'm going to do that tomorrow. And I've already let my list know earlier in the week when I sent out my easing. I said to my list, look for this on Friday. On Friday, you're going to have a chance to get something that is a product that is $20 for 7 or $40 for 7, and it's one day only, and it's a flash sale. Well, the people who decide to take you up on that deal, you've warmed that part of your list up again, and you can segment that list, and you know then that those people will be buyers of your stuff, at least at a small level. Then you can test it and see if they will be willing to invest in you at a higher level. So that's a really good way to warm up a cold list, is make an offer. Make a no-brainer, easy-peasy offer. I have known some people who've even made a $1 offer. And I decided I didn't want to do that. I thought $7 was cheap enough, but I mean, just to warm that list up again and see who's a buyer and who's not. And the people who don't respond, take them off your list. If they're not ever going to be performers for you, then why do you want them on your list? So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be tomorrow for me. So if you're on my list and you're listening to this, look for your email tomorrow about the flash sale, and maybe it'll be something you can use. I keep looking down because Jake is right here. He's in here in the room with me today, and he's bugging me. He's like acting like he wants to go out, and I'm like, no, you can't go out. You have to sit there and be quiet for a minute. So,
hold him up and let everybody see him.
Oh, he's too big to pick up. I don't know.
He's too big to pick up. Oh.
Let's see if I can get you up here. You want to be on TV? Here's Jake. Look at the camera, Jake. This is my Jake dog. He's an old guy. Look at him. He's got his ears back. He's not sure what I'm doing. Okay, you can get down. Down. Now he'll for sure want to go out. So anyway, okay, what else, Marnie, do we need to talk about and tell people what's been on our minds?
I don't know. Did you say something else at the beginning? It seemed like you said
I was talking
about business, or what was it you said? It was.
I was talking about ground of being. I put this piece on Facebook today on my page, my business page, and I also put it on Google Plus in my group, my Confident Marketer group. And I was talking about, the longer I consult for other people and mentor other people, guide them or coach them, whatever you want to call it, the more I see that, I can teach them business tools, as you can, Marnie. And I think we've had this conversation a little bit before. But the important thing is really, in a way, not the business tools. The important thing is really how you are in the world. What is what I call the ground of being? What is your ground of being? What is it that you want to live from every day? So if you say that you want to live from a solid ground and you want to be unstoppable and unflappable, then that means that when something comes at you from the outside, like a customer that's peeved at you because you did something, or a kid who's acting out, then you don't get caught into the drama and lose your ground and let them pull your energy over to this agitated state, but you deal with whatever the situation is from your ground of being, from that solid ground. So, and it means also living in concert with what each of us say what our values are. We each have different values. I mean, we all develop those as kids, either through our parents or through our spiritual practices or whatever. We all have values that are different. You may have different values than me. So let's just say that you want to be, you go to church on Sunday and you hear a sermon about God is love, and you say to yourself while you're listening to that sermon, that's one part of my ground of being. I consider myself to be a Christian, a spiritual person, and a person who wants to live a life based in love. That's one of my values. You think to yourself as you're sitting there, maybe. And then after church is over, you go out in the parking lot, and there's a dirty homeless man, and you react with fear and disgust and loathing. Then you've lost your ground of being, because you just said your ground of being was one of love. That didn't mean love when it's easy. It meant love at all times. So you've lost your ground of being, and you've pulled into that energy of fear and loathing and disgust. So it really is whatever we say our ground is, and we all get to pick what our grounds are for ourselves, then it means that we are, it's incumbent upon us to keep that ground no matter what's happening around us. And sometimes that's really hard to do. You know, if I say I want to be a person who is calm and at peace, and then I hear that I may never walk again, and I go completely over into that energy of fear and drama and hysteria, I've completely lost my ground of being. Well, none of us are saints. We can't keep that ground all the time, but we can work constantly to remind ourselves of what that ground is. And what I've come to really, the reason I'm even talking about all this in a business show is that what I've realized is that, you know, all kinds of crap happens to us when we're in business. You know, like Marnie, you lost a six-figure business literally overnight. Literally overnight, you lost it. Probably multiple six-figure business literally overnight. Well, if you got pulled off your ground of who you are as a business person and who you are as a smart person who can solve problems and get to the bottom of things, and who you are as an online brilliant person who knows how to look at trends, you would just completely fall off the face of the earth and go start working at Burger Doodle. I mean, you know, you wouldn't. You had to pull yourself in, and I'm quite sure it was difficult. And I'm sure you had days when you were all over the place. But eventually, you found your ground of being again, and you established some other lines of business in the online world, and you're still a person who is. That's how you make your living. So you had to. That ground of being bolstered you and supported you when things got tough. If we don't have that, we never think about who are we underneath all that. Underneath being a mom or being a dad or being a grandparent or being a husband or being a dog owner or whatever, underneath all that, who are we? That's our ground. And I see that the people who are truly successful and have stability in business over the long term, they're the ones who know how to keep their ground. The ones who let everything else intervene and they go, oh my gosh, it's terrible, it's awful, they're the ones who quit. They don't have any ground of stability. So I want to start teaching that to people because I actually think it is every bit as important as me teaching you how to set up an autoresponder series or teaching you how to do important too, but the ground of being is equally as important. And most business owners don't talk about that. They don't teach that. So I think you and I, Marnie, we're both good at that. We both are pretty good at holding our ground. And I think we need to talk about that and teach that. So that's my vent for today.
Good sermon.
I mean, tell me your reaction to it. Are you sitting there going, oh my gosh, he went off on a tangent? Or
No. I think it's it's really true. It's really true because you can get hammered in business, you know, by the things that happen, the things you can't predict. You know, things change so much, especially on the internet.
Yeah.
What worked yesterday doesn't work again today. You know, so it has to go back to, are you somebody who's willing to stick to it, be determined, be consistent, you know, work for it.
Yeah.
You know, I think the biggest thing that probably my ground of being, if you're that's gonna have a value laying down there, is the willingness to work at it, you know, to do the work. Because sometimes you have to start with something maybe you don't want to do, you know, you know, that's just the hard work to just go ahead and do it. And then also keeping the customers in mind. Because if I come at something from, I need money, how am I going to get money, you know, and I'm floating all around with the money, and I'm not thinking about the people or what they need, I lose my ground. But if I keep centered on the people and what they need and how I can best serve them, and the money is secondary to that, the money comes then, and I maintain my ground better.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is that you have to really look at how can you be of service and what is it that the people who follow you want, and you never know how you will affect people. So yeah, that whole ground of being, and sometimes it comes at you in odd ways and you hear things about yourself in odd ways. This weird thing happened to me today. In fact, this morning, I'm sitting in a different room, as some of you who watch us a lot may know. This looks different to you. I'm actually sitting in my massage room today because our housekeeper had to show up a little bit later because she had something she had to do this morning. And so she just came a while ago, and I scooted in here so I could do this. And she said, "Oh," she said, "one of my friends knows you." And I said, "Oh, who's that?" Because I don't really know too many local people. And she said, "Well, I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, well, I have to go to work today. You know, I've got a house that I've got to clean today." And the gal said, "Oh, who?" And she said, "Well, it's Sue Painter." And this gal goes, "Oh my God, the Confident Marketer. You work for the Confident Marketer? I don't believe it." And I was like, "You're kidding me." It was just cracked me up. This woman's on my list, and I don't know her because, you know, I've got thousands of people on my list. But she's followed me from this little town outside of Nashville. She's followed me for years. And I didn't know that. So you never know how you're going to affect people, or even if you're going to affect people. And my housekeeper was saying to me, "Oh, she wants to just be just like you." And I'm like, I was so honored by that, but I was also struck by, you just never know who is looking at you and taking from you that ground of being and that calmness or that expertise or whatever it is that you have. So that's all. I guess we better wrap up. It's 2:30 already. How do we fill up half an hour? I don't know how we do, but we always seem to have fun doing it.
Well, we got plenty to say, right? Lots of philosophy to get through. So
Yeah. So I don't know. I would love to hear people's comments about whether they even want to hear about that ground of being thing or living from your values or however you want to state it. Because Marnie and I actually would like to teach that along with the business tools that we teach. So let us know your reactions to that, pro or con, so that we'll know if that is something that is helpful.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Sue.
Sure, you're welcome. It's good to see you, Marnie. So I guess next week, you know what? I don't have my calendar with me because I'm in a different room. Do you know when we are next week?
No. I have October 26th in my mind, but that's a Sunday, so it can't be that.
It might be Monday. We'll send out a thing and let you know anyway. And remember, if you have a question, you can come live on the show, or you can email us to info@confidentmarketer.com. And if you want to always be sure to know when the shows are and get the replay links, and you haven't signed up to be on the list for that, go to confidentmarketer.com/Peep Show, P-E-E-P, Peep Show, and we'll be sure you get on the list as well. And please connect with us on Google, too. Connect with us and put us in one of your circles so that we can send you an invitation for the Google Hangout directly from Google, and it'll be easier for you to come live on the show and ask your questions.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.